Well, hello, everybody. T3 here for another episode of T3 Reads the Works of my fantastic father, Tom Brown Jr. Just gonna give some people a minute to show up. If somebody could let me know in the chat if I am coming through loud and clear, that would be awesome. Frustrating. Yeah, if somebody could just give me something in chat. Oops. Chat. And as we prepare to move into the actual reading, there we go. All right. Hopefully everyone can hear me now. I'm just waiting on some. Oh, you can hear me, Mark? Yeah, unfortunately, I am still dealing with the reason I need to move on. And the internet is still strong. But you just see the track lights community error logo, correct? Transition back to this one. And pull up one more doc so I can monitor things. Yeah, I have a little bit of a buffer set, so hopefully that will keep things from being too chattery. Yeah, Starlink is amazing. The first edition was horrible because you had to have a perfect a perfect view of the of the sky because there's now thousands upon thousands of satellites. And actually, interesting fact for those of you who might be interested in knowing, uh, you said the volume's low, Mark. Let's see here if I can. I have it cranked all the way up on this end. Let me see. Let me check up here. So many different things. Oh, that's why. Hold on. Now I realize what's going on. I've still got my earbuds in. 1 second. All right. So hopefully that should be better. Is that better? Better, better? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I had my, accidentally had my earbuds, or it was reading my earbuds, should I say. But now that I've removed them, it is time to get ready. Now, as I mentioned, yep, mic is right underneath my mouth. How about now? Is that better? Is that better? Is that better now? Excellent. All right, now we can get this party started for real. So, welcome to another episode of the fantastic, joyous. It's one of the things that I look forward to regularly, and I haven't done one in a little while because I haven't been able to, I think I've missed a week or two, and uh, I know quite a few people enjoy them. So from here on out, the next one of these I do, actually, maybe not the next one, but the one after that, I will definitely be in on the first official leg of fulfilling my vision, and that is that of the nomad. Uh, you know, I like to, when people ask me what I do, I say, well, I'm kind of like the Willy Loman of uh, of the vision, and I travel around. I'm going to be traveling around, teaching my pay what you will system, and um, add more classes to the pay what you will system. Also, being that I'm going to be spending time in specific areas and places, you'll be able to book me to come to your house or wherever I might be staying at the time and take a class from me live and in person. Or if you have a group of friends, um, that might be interested in a class. I am bringing the skills to you. In fact, I'm submitting two different designs to the car magnet place, and one I will I'll add in and see if I can make it part of the presentation, and the other I will it just says skills dash two dash U. So number two, U. It's a bit of an inside joke. But or before we get started, I want to play a little video that I found recently. So I wanted to play this movie just as a reminder of where I've been and all the beautiful things that I've seen. while here in Oregon, and also make me really miss having a drone, um, which I, out of the blue found a guy here in town. Let me switch to my view. Found a guy here in town who just so happens to have an unboxed version of the new DJI Flip, which is meant for uh, essentially to be a mobile webcam and drone. And it's really inexpensive, and I'll be able to take online programming to the ultimate level with it, because instead of me just sitting here behind my computer or behind my other camera, part of the class will be like that, and then part of it will be me walking through the woods, and it'll be just like you're following me through the woods. And I will, depending on the class or the subject, I will be able to demonstrate things I wouldn't otherwise normally be able to do. So, yeah, I'm really excited for that. And then I just wanted to take a minute to say a few things. This has been a huge couple weeks for me. As you know, on the 31st, my friend Cassie and I set out to head to New Jersey to celebrate the life of my father. And, even though things didn't go exactly as planned, I'm so grateful that I got to repair the relationship between my brother River and I. In fact, he and I have been texting back and forth these last few days as he's teaching in New Jersey right now. And yeah, it's that one, not speaking to him for so long and not knowing why, um, was really hurtful to me, because I couldn't think, of anything I've done anybody wrong in the last decades, much less enough to warrant not talking to me for 3 years. And then I found out that, somebody had told him a mistruth. And luckily, I was able to, quote unquote, prove my innocence. And we made up, and ever since we've been texting back and forth every day. And I've been able to give him some advice and some teaching. And because that was one thing my father was very clear about, is that I was to help my brother become all that he can be. And I will do that in any way, shape, or form that I can, because I'm so thankful that another one of us brown boys picked up the vision, and it's not just me. And one day, I envision my brother and I teaching together. And even though my brother Cody isn't into the skills so much, he is a magnificent chef. And I think it would be really awesome to, uh, you know, have him on board doing the cooking. Uh, I just As you may have heard or read, my blog post that officially announces that I have graduated from 4 years of the most extreme tests that life could throw at me. And even though I could have done without the loss of my mom and my dad and two very important other beings, and everything else, I gained so much more in many aspects than I lost. I learned how to live with myself. Previous to that, the longest I had lived alone was maybe a few months. Um, I learned how to business, sort of. I'm forever, these last 4 years, even though I haven't been teaching as much, I have been using my time to design what is going to be the next step in nature education, period, but especially online nature education. And it all starts and begins with the pay what you will model. I never, even back when I started working with my dad, I never ever felt right charging money for the teaching of skills that belong to all of us. If these skills didn't work and work well, none of us would be here right now at this point in space and time, because they wouldn't have allowed our ancestors to live through some of the most brutal conditions the earth has ever seen. And so yeah, it never quite sat right with me. I can understand charging money for paying for things like food and equipment and tool and location rentals, but the information itself, to me that's sacred. And so one night, my father and a few other ghosts of of Trek or past, we'll call them, came into my dreams and just said, you always have problems deciding what to charge for what class. Why don't you just ask people what they can afford to pay or want to pay? And I was like, are you crazy? It's like my only real revenue stream. And they said, don't worry, you will, it'll be worth it. And lo and behold, this teaching season, I have more students than any other. Um, and it's helped me grow in so many ways. I now have two people helping me, much thanks to Mark and Kristen. Especially Mark. Mark, you have been literally a lifesaver and saved me countless hours of frustration. Um, Essentially giving me the space and the mental space to be able to get ready to uproot again and move on down to Montana way, temporarily, as I go to spend time with another one of my dear friends and person who has been there by my side throughout these, I'll call them my college years. But yeah, so that being said, this show is dedicated to my father and his readings. Oh yeah, one last thing I'll mention. I mentioned about the blog post. Give it a read. Watch the videos in there. If you're subscribed to my newsletter, I'm going to have it send out tomorrow morning, first thing. And if everything goes right, fingers crossed, this time next week, I will either be getting ready to leave to go to Montana or perhaps even on my way. I'm just waiting for the trailer hitch to come in, because I was apprehensive at first about using towing a trailer with my little Subaru, but then I realized that I packing moving will be that much more stress free, because I have so slimmed down my life to literally my only possessions are things I need to do my job, the tools, camera gear, stuff like that. Somebody lovingly came and stole, a third of my life and my tools that I've been collecting my entire life recently out of my friend's garage, which is heartbreaking because I had some antique tools in there that belong to family members. They were gifted to me. Not to mention the best chainsaw I've ever had in my entire life. And, things that I won't be able to. What's up, JP? Welcome. Uh, things I won't be able to replace for a long time because they were expensive. And, I hated even having to spend the money I've had to replace a few simple things that are necessary for travel, like, a set of sockets and a couple pairs of pliers and things like that. And luckily, the ride is not that far. But yeah, I wanted to share one last story, and this one is many thanks to a very dear friend and the woman who holds the record for taking the most tracker school classes. Um, we had an exchange. She has hosted a fire ceremony ever since she took her first philosophy class. I think it was 27 years ago. And every equinox and solstice, they hold this event, and they have done so without fail for the last 27 years. And to me, that is the essence of the pure vision right there. Somebody that has learned something from my father, adapted it to their own, so to speak, and then drawn people in that way. And those are going to be the type of folks that I'm seeking to interview when I do fully get on the road and stop in various regions of the country. I'm not looking to necessarily interview, people who have opened schools, although there will be quite a few of those. But I am most interested in people who have taken my father's teachings and applied them to their everyday life and made their lives and the lives of the people around them that much better because of it. And that's why I'm always one thing. My I don't think my father realized how many people he actually reached throughout the course of his career. I have. There is very, very rarely do I come into contact with somebody who is not at least heard of my father. Um, and I would say I would easily willing to bet a couple dollars that he has influenced the lives of millions of people indirectly. While they might not have been, the people who have read his books or things like that, they may have been, affected by somebody who, took a class or read a book or did something like that. So that's what this documentary is going to be all about. So, as usual with these readings, at first I was like, I'm going to read everything, chapter one from the tracker all the way through to, the last book. And then Intervision told me, nah, don't do that. Instead, what I do now is I wait till about an hour before the event, and then I ask Intervision. And I often find it's with just about every episode I've run, I have uh, read something that has allowed me to leapfrog and get over things that were holding me back. So that's why my father was the ultimate coyote teacher. Is he his lessons are the type that keep on giving. And, for that, it's caused me to go back and look at notes that I took of his, writing, while listening to him talk. And yeah, they're just like everything is everything is like an onion, layer upon layer upon layer. Uh, so is every lesson, so is every person, so is every plant. Now, I am reading out of order by doing this, and I'm going to um, I'm going to read a short chapter from this guy right here, which is the number one edition, hardcover edition of the tracker. If you've noticed on my website, I've taken down the auctioning of tracker memorabilia. That doesn't mean I'm not going to auction off anymore. It just means that I I don't have the time to really focus on scanning everything and doing all that stuff that goes into that. So I'm just going to temporarily put it on hold. However, if there is something you are interested in, you can email me. I'm actually going to add a button where the page used to be. That'll be a direct contact link to me. And then you can, make an offer, possibly, because those funds are, yeah, solstice. Um, yeah, those funds have helped not only me, but the monies I sent home, have helped there as well. So anyway, back to the book. I chose to read I'm choosing to read the chapter first, the journeyman from the tracker. And God, I can just imagine. I was too young to witness this, but when my father opened the first box of books that came from Berkeley Publishing, I think that's who did these, yeah. And literally, this is the first one that he pulled out of the box. And he wrote an inscription to my mother on the inside. Um, and I can just imagine, as somebody who's working on several books, even though I won't get the joy necessarily of a good old hardcover or paperback because those don't seem to exist anymore. Um, I can imagine the feeling he was going through, the when this arrived, because this was the start of everything. And once again, I always give much thanks to my mom, because if it weren't for her, there would be there wouldn't be this there wouldn't be a tracker school. My father was perfectly content with being a woodcutter and teaching the Boy Scouts and the state police like he was. And it wasn't until my mom heard a lot of his stories that she was like, you need to write this stuff down and pass this on to other people. Because they were dead set, or he was dead set on, as soon as I was old enough to carry at least my own weight, that we were going to head off into the Bob Marshall and Homestead, because he was just so sick of modern society and what it had become. But I'm reading this chapter in particular because I often get calls and requests for apprenticeships and long term. And I see other places advertising things as an apprenticeship. So think this chapter will help clear it up a little bit. My personal definition would be something like you literally live, with your teacher, and you spend a while doing all the stuff he doesn't want to do, like sweeping and cleaning and doing all that stuff, in exchange for learning. Um, the only person I know that has like a true apprenticeship style program is an artist named William Lloyd. He makes some of the most fantastic bone carving and antler carving out there. I will put it in the show notes afterwards. His studio, it's William Lloyd Studios. And, his apprentice pretty much lives in a shed behind his shop and is responsible for everything from cleaning and maintaining all the tools to, uh, you know, starting a new piece. And then William will take over and finish it out, to all manner of things. And the one beautiful thing about an apprenticeship style learning is that there's far less verbal communication than you would expect. See, I didn't learn the skills I know by taking every class that the school had to offer and taking notes. No, I just learned by being a barn cat from the age I could walk and just sitting there and listening to my father and then listening to the people around me and duplicating what they were doing. So, chapter 18. Apprenticeship was hard. Journeymanship was long. Stalking Wolf trained us for 4 years, the last 2 of which were intense enough to be a full-time occupation. Before we came of age and passed from apprenticeship to journeyman. But there were 2 stages to journeymanship. In the first, the journeyman is really an elevated apprentice. He is given more and more knowledge, but he uses it under the gradually loosening supervision of the master of the art. So true. So true. You need to, a lot of what you pick up, if you truly ever find yourself in that sort of situation, is you look at your teacher as a big puddle of water, and you are a sponge, and you are sponging up everything from them, from how they act and interact, um, with the people in their lives, to whatever craft it is they are masterful at. Eventually, however, the journeyman must truly become a man, uh, eh, must truly become the man who goes on journeys. Hint, hint. T3 Digi-Natural Nomad coming to a city near you. The journeys he goes on are not quite important enough for the master to go on, or they come up when the master is busy or elsewhere and needs a good representative. I promise you, Dad, I will do that and more. But they are journeys nevertheless. And while on them, the journeyman is on his own, limited in what he can do only by his skill and daring. There is not much practical difference between an independent journeyman and a master of the art. I stopped being an apprentice at 12. I became an independent journeyman at 16 when Stalking Wolf left. By 18, it had become clear to me that although there were countless things worth learning in the Pine Barrens, I was going to have to go elsewhere to become a complete master of my craft. At 18, I began the first of several journeys that would take me to the Grand Tetons, coming soon, the Dakota Badlands, I will also be there, and the Grand Canyon, there too. What finally set me moving was a trail that I found on my 18th birthday. And just a side note, my father mysteriously one day walked up to me and handed me a list of numbers. And he said, "You are to visit these places after I'm dead," and walked away. And keep in mind, this is 20 something years ago. And I didn't know what the heck they were. They looked like Loran coordinates, but I've since figured out what type of coordinates they are, and I've put them into my Garmin off-road GPS. And the first one happens to be in Montana, where I'm going, and you will get to experience me finding that place live on camera when I am ready to do so. Anyway, I was walking across the woods and I came across a trail that was different, or that was at least 2 months old. The ground had frozen and unfrozen to different degrees all December and January, but there was still a readable print left. The tracks were erratic, and I followed them in a staggering, frenzied circles. The body was not far away. I found his gun about 30 feet further on. I lifted back the bushes, and there was the body. The next day I went back and followed his tracks back to the Jeep with a broken fan belt. His tracks were all around it, and I found the deeper heel mark where he had jumped down. I followed the earliest set of tracks around the car. At almost each corner of the car, there were sideward ridges on the print as if he had stopped and looked around. He had apparently ridden the Jeep in circles until it died. Panic must have set in a long time before, or he wouldn't have run the engine past to where he overheated it. If he had gone in short quarter bursts and coasted when he could, he might still have gotten out without a fan belt and without overheating. But he must have jumped out of the Jeep and run around the car looking for something, anything, that would seem like a key to the way out. The tracks dug in at the toes in a sort of frenzied shuffle around the car, checking each new horizon for some way to escape. In his knowing panic, he was still methodical, organized. Snap decisions are what killed him. It must have dawned on him when the heat indicator went on that pretty soon he was going to have to start walking through that wilderness, so vast and intricate that he had been riding through all morning trying to get out. I believe he did not start running until late morning, because a prudent man would have sat still until he had some light to distinguish the trails by. If he had started running in the night, it might have been because he was feeling the first hints of the oncoming heart attack that finally killed him. But I don't think he did. If he started driving even late at night, he would probably have outrun his panic by late morning when the car finally broke down completely. But the man who jumped out of the car and ran around it looking for a way out was still in the throes of growing panic. He did not just spring from the car and start running. He looked around, perhaps frantically, before he set out, and he had the presence of mind to take his gun. He had come here to hunt, after all. And it was probably in his mind that there were things in the woods, wild dogs at least, that might be hunting him. That fear may have quickened his steps and set him running instead of conserving his energy. With the gun and the abundance of water in the Pine Barrens, He should have been able to keep himself alive a good long time, even in December and January. But he was not. I'll do it. Phone call my attention. Let's see. Where's that? Still, it was not a blind panic. Let's see when. Oh, December and January. But he was not used to that kind of situation, and he panicked and started to run, looking for an exit. Still, it was not a blind panic. The footsteps went in rushes and pauses as he looked, decided, and then took off as fast as he could, the way he had chosen. But eventually, the feet dropped to a shuffle, and not much further on, they started to become erratic, where the heart attack probably happened. I had followed his tracks around the heartbreaking circles of the hopelessly lost. I had watched the circles get tighter and tighter as he speeded up, frantically looking for something that might lead him out. Not long after they began to shuffle, the tracks went erratic and began to stagger. He carried that heavy gun with him almost to the end. I could see him in his tracks going along, trying to use what skill he had, but not sitting down and not considering the alternatives, not looking for solutions other than flight. Lost is probably when you can think of no other alternative to being where you are than flight. Maybe the pain kept him from hearing the traffic noises, and maybe he heard them. After all, he was trying to make for them through the blinding haze of his pain. He was going parallel to the Garden State Parkway, which is a 4-lane median strip, 4-lane interstate, and now is back then wasn't much smaller, major highway that connects North and South Jersey. I could see him in his tracks going along, trying to use what skill he had, but not. Along his trail, I could see a resourceful man who, even in the first stages of panic, kept his wits about him and might have well made his way out of the woods if his body had not given out on him, or if he hadn't pushed it so much. I could see him going what he thought were the limits of his skills in the woods, and getting more and more afraid because those skills were leaving him just as lost as before. Perhaps if he had said to himself that he would have to live off the land for a few weeks, he would have relaxed and come to the right trail eventually. Probably he did not think of all the organizational skills he used at other times in his life. I doubted that he organized his search for a way out as he would have organized a job. He had taken the gun, but he hadn't fired it to summon aid. Maybe he was saving that for the end when he couldn't go any further. I looked at his trail for a long time, and I wondered what I would do in a place as alien to me as the Pine Barrens, and had I been the hunter. I knew my skills were more than adequate to exist where I was, but the hunter had skills that had allowed him to live the day-to-day life of northern New Jersey. He had his runs and his trails there, his snares to avoid, and his survival drills to go through. I wondered how well my own skills would work in other parts of the country. I went off all the next 4 summers to find out. Now, if you want to talk about some inner vision, holy crap. To me, that chapter just literally summed up everything I am getting ready to embark upon and what has taken me so long to get there. I can laugh about it now, but the main thing that got me into the place I am at this point in space and time was I broke all of the rules of a survival situation. I had a beautiful, beautiful, award winning Toyota Tacoma pickup truck that I spent 4+ years and a lot of money making the ultimate overland vehicle. And my father had several rules about traveling with vehicles. He said, number one, you always never let your vehicle get below a half tank of gas. Because that way, if you've got to go somewhere, you're guaranteed to have at least a half tank. I take that a step further when I can, and not only do I keep at least a half a tank, but I also carry 5 gallons of fuel with me. Ironically, I've never had to use it, but I've given away a lot of 5 gallons of gas. um, I carry 2 gallons of water with me at all times, as well as 2 different methods for cooking food and a full change of clothing, even if it's summertime. And that's just not, you don't even want to know how much stuff I have to take on nomadic life. But I'm actually going to have to read that chapter again later because it's exactly what I needed to hear at this moment in space and time. Because a lot of the reason that's gotten me to the point in this point in space and time was breaking many of the rules that I teach you all when you come take a survival class with me. I leapt before I looked. I trusted before I verified. Um, and then I just made some downright stupid mistakes. And plus, some random happenstance and, things like that. But as I say in my blog post, I treasure the pain of these last 4 years because they have expedited my growth. Because my growth was stunted. I grew up in a place where I was loved and appreciated. And then when my parents divorced when I was 12, I moved to the suburbs. And thankfully, I had grandmother Atlantic there to, uh, you know, be a friend. But that time of my life, eventually, I was working the 9 to 5, and it led me into the bowels of addiction because I had lost the peace, love, joy, and purpose that I gained while in nature and while showing, uh, teaching people. And now, as I literally within the next 7 to 10 days get ready to truly begin the first leg of this 2 year long nomadic journey, much of it following in my father's footsteps. I'm I'm making lists, checking them twice, and I'm only taking those things that are essential for me to do the best job I possibly can. And by doing so, I can ensure that, you know, I save on space, I save on frantic, panicked energy of like worrying if I have this or that. And I can feel my first taste of freedom in over 25 years rapidly approaching me. And I cannot tell you how excited and elated I am. I do wish I had a bigger I had a four-wheel drive van that was all set up so I could have my station that I broadcast from all set up, but that'll come in time. I'm amazed at what I've been able to accomplish since arriving back here at my friend's house, who I am very grateful for housing me and helping to feed me these last few months as I finally got out of my own way, learned what to really worry about and what not to, and am truly beginning to build something that my father will be and is proud of. And I have so much in my life to be thankful for. You know, the fact that people like my friend Mark and others are willing to give up their, their precious life force, their time. Time is the most priceless thing to help me realize my vision. You know, that is the ultimate definition of a caretaker. And it wasn't until Mark came on board to help me, where something that takes him a few minutes might take me, hours, where it's freed up time for me to think, to rest, to make videos of me working on skills, to build new webinars. Speaking of which, I will be adding the archery one I've been talking about, but I want to have a good little window there for my move so that there is no hiccuping in programming whatsoever. Because from here on out, unless I'm bleeding from the eyes or just so happen to accidentally separate a part of my body from the body itself, like the Postal Service, I will run programming, hail, sleet, snow, you know, all of that. Because whether you pay $1 for one of my classes or $1,000, um, I will give you my all, and all the experience I've accrued over the last 20 lifetimes. And the funny thing is my father set out on his journey from the East Coast, and I'm setting out mine from the West. And there's a lesson there, which I'm actually writing in my journal right now to explore and think about. Sometimes you have to go backwards in time, uh, or a journey in backwards. And luckily, I have his stories, both ones he's published and ones he told to me, and others over the years to guide me. I've got these mysterious GPS coordinates, which the one is like the nearest place it looks like I can park is 18 miles from. So that should be a nice fun hike. Um, Unless I make a sponsorship deal with an electric dirt bike company, which I'm hoping to do, because a battery operated dirt bike, that's that almost makes up for the lack of flying cars. But anyway, y'all, I want to say thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for watching this recording. And that was by far and away one of the most random, powerful, perfectly what I needed at that moment in space and time readings, that I just so randomly, I actually was going to read something different, and then I dropped the book and it opened to the journeyman chapter, and it just made me so thankful for you all, thankful for my father, because without him I don't know what I would be, because everything that I have, everything that I am, every person I know is all born of the school. So until next, well, there is, depending on things, Um, I might, and travel and things. And even though I'm going to try not to, because I can pull over and do one of these from the road. If I do get a chance to, get on the road by Thursday, which is very doable, depending on when the hitch gets here. I will stop. It's a 14-hour drive to where I'm going, and I'll probably do it, part way and part way. But until then, peace, love, joy, and purpose to you all. I'm going to go program my blog post to go out tomorrow morning to my mailing list. Otherwise, you can go check it out on my website right now. And I will put up those things that I mentioned in the show notes for this episode. Uh, and also, a couple other random things. I finally got my Garmin InReach back on, so anytime I'm traveling, you'll be able to follow along live. I've got this guy right here, yeah, which it's a security camera, but I'm going to mount it inside my car, and it rotates 360 degrees, and I can actually provide a link so that, let's say I'm driving and I'm bored and I want to talk to somebody. I will announce on social media that, hey, all, car cam is on. Pop on and ask me anything. And you'll be able to see me through this. And then I've got another one, but waterproof version that'll go on the roof of my car so you can see exactly where I am in the world at that point in space and time. So I've got a lot of really awesome stuff planned. So much so that I've caught the eye of the International Online Educators Association. I've been speaking with them, and it's all finally coming together. I just had to learn to truly listen to my elders and get the hell out of my own way. And last thing I'll say is that, Dad, you were right. Like he says, if you believe everything I tell you is a fool, yeah, if you believe everything I tell you, you're a fool. Your job is not to believe me. Your job is to prove me right and prove me wrong. And so many people have been trying to force me into the position of proving their narrative right and what I'm doing is wrong. Well, I'm not playing that game anymore. You will only always get 100% open, honest T3 because that's how sacred this work is to me. I have no ulterior motives. I don't seek influence over people. I just want to carry on the work of my greatest hero. That's my father, Tom Brown Jr. Until next time, everybody, peace, love, joy, and purpose. Go check out the blog post. I'll put the link in my show notes. And one last favor I ask, please, when you see, if I make a post about my schedule, or if you want to be proactive, you can share it amongst your social networks because I am still dealing with some sort of weird ban that prevents me from reaching all of my followers and boosting posts and things like that. And I'm really trying to let the world know what I'm doing here with the pay what you will and this whole nomad project of making a documentary, writing a biography, and then making a documentary about me making a documentary and a biography, and also providing amazing in-person and online content. And later on, when I get to my next destination and part 2 of my blog comes out, I will speak about the members section of my website, which I'll be opening soon, which is free to join. And that will give you access to a bunch of stuff I didn't want cluttering up my main page, like gear that I use, organizations that I know the people who run are top notch, testimonials, videos, articles that I've written, all sorts of that stuff. So until next time, I will see you. Stay happy, stay healthy, get outside. Although here it's dumping rain today. Enjoy. We have the longest day of the year, right? Right. 21st. Yeah. All right, coming up. Enjoy the longest day of the year. All right, y'all. Peace and love. Thank you so much for attending.